Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Equiticity webinar series. Today's topic, the transformative power of community mobility rituals. My name is Lonnie Swain. I'm going to be one of your hosts today. My wonderful co-host, Jonathan, is joining us. Jonathan, if you want to say hello to the people.
Greetings.
We'll be giving you some time to get into the webinar, give a few minutes for the crowd to gather, and we'll get started shortly.
Lonnie, should we make an announcement about the ASL interpreters so that those who are already on can try to get that set up, and we can say it again before we jump in?
Sure. So we have American Sign Language interpretation being provided by Renaissance One Group. So if you have the ASL option on your Zoom, you can set that up right now. You can move the boxes to kind of coordinate it or set it up in gallery view to make sure that they are always visible on your screen, if that is something that would be beneficial to you. So you can start setting that up now, but making sure that it's in gallery view would be good to do right now. And it looks like we have a good bit of people joining us already, so we can go ahead and get started. Once again, welcome to the Equiticity webinar series, kicking off the very first webinar of the series. Today's topic is the transformative power of community mobility rituals. So a wonderful topic. We're going to dive right in. If you're not familiar with community mobility rituals, after today, you absolutely will be. My name is Lonnie Swain. I'm going to be one of your hosts for today. My co-host is Jonathan. Jonathan, you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Jonathan Stafford, and I am delighted to be here with you today, and delighted to be here with Lonnie, who is way more famous than I am.
No. You're too kind, Jonathan. But today we are going to have a wonderful conversation, and Jonathan has lots and lots of information and experience in the community mobility ritual space. And he's going to be drawing from that experience to kind of get into some more information from our panelists. So we can't wait to get into that conversation. Jonathan, if you want to kind of give an overview of what we're going to be talking about today.
Absolutely. So you may or may not have heard these. I hope you have heard of a community mobility rituals, but if you haven't, you'll know everything that you need to know by the end of the conversation today, and whet your appetite for the rest of the month. My personal experience about community mobility rituals really comes into it from the ritualistic view and how we build community. But it really includes like mainstays of community bike rides, neighborhood walking tours, and all the ways that people gather to move around their communities and neighborhoods. What are community mobility rituals? How are they planned and executed? What impacts have they had on our lives? And how do they bring us back into community and back into kind of, see the language that I use, right relationship with the world around us, right? How are we interacting with one another through community mobility rituals? Who organizes these? How do they come about? How are we better as people, as individuals, and as a community collectively when we find ourselves as a part of community mobility rituals. All of that will be explored in our conversation today. We refer to the events that we create, whether it be weekly bike rides or neighborhood walks, kind of one of the ones that people often are familiar with. Somewhere around the 90s or so, folks started showing up at these big shopping malls and started having walks together. Shopping malls were very like, I don't know if people still, there are not very many of them left, but shopping malls were like very centralized in neighborhoods. And people started showing up early in the morning to walk together, and it grew, right? Like, and then we have the term mall walkers. That is a community mobility ritual. It was a way for folks to gather together, to be together. You would expect to see Joe or Jane at the mall at 6 a.m. for the walk. And if they weren't there, you were looking for them. And so that created a sense of togetherness. And likewise, people have ways that they move around their neighborhoods. They gather to walk their children or walk their pets at a certain time of day, and you expect to see your neighbor. And if a few days pass by and you don't see them, then you wonder where they are, and you may give them a call or stop by their house. That's the togetherness. That's how we are brought back into right relationship as it relates to like how we do ritualistic, which is just how it happens over time at some interval, right? So all of that said, I am looking forward to really delving into hearing how these wonderful panelists have thought about ritual, have thought about community, and have thought about the way we move around community together. With that said, Lonnie, we've got some video now.
Yes, a video featuring the work of one of our panelists, Dr. Kalonji. So I will share my screen right now.
Sharing?
Yes. Can you see it?
Says you started screen sharing. Yes.
Are you seeing it?
We're not seeing the video.
Are you hearing it?
We're not hearing the video.
Keep going. Don't let nobody get in your way. Because me, I have lots of excuses.
There we go.
Or so people would say excuses. Like I graduated through COVID. Like I had to deal with that. I had to write. I was just writing the whole time, know how to get it done.
The vaccine killing dreams, but and what it seems when I look at shit we've been through, I feel the need to cry. I know it's hard to trust the system at times. Conspiracies for the air with lies. I know it's crazy, but I've been by myself, reaching out for help, trying to get some help. I ain't get no help. When I look at my community, this shit ain't really new to me. They talking about some unity. I just need opportunity.
Oh yeah, that's what my mom was saying.
Why you won't fight? Oh, I am on fight. Why you won't fight? Oh, I am on fight.
Allowing us to create this space and be here. And we're just excited that he is is excited with us to do this project. Thank you, Principal Weber. Scrolling through my For You page, trying to cut the time. When is it gonna be my turn? Will I ever shine? I write poems in my notebook when I'm feeling sad. Engineering major, but I don't know any CAD. Hang with the boys and I'm feeling cool. Playing a little ping pong, playing a little pool. Writing bars on the side, I mostly go to school. Can someone please tell me why these kids love the jewel? Why not just stick around here and pop on a track real quick? You know, express yourself. Carla is our collaborator at North High School or in her classroom doing hip hop and wellness.
All right. Lonnie, is it done?
Like, don't be afraid to like step out your comfort zone. I start with what I want to write.
So sorry, I don't think it was playing. Like it wasn't. I think you might have to share screen with optimizing the video.
Let's see.
There's like a little box that you check that says optimize for video, I think, when you share your screen.
Okay. Bear with us as we work through these technical difficulties.
Lonnie, keep pressing on at what you're doing. Let's do a quick round of introductions, and that way we can make sure everyone knows who's here with us. I'm gonna quickly say who you are, but I want you to tell the people who you are, what you do, and what you want them to know about you, okay? Today we have with us Dr. Kalonji and my dear friend Oboi Reed from Equiticity. Doc, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan. So my name is Kalonji. I am a community organizer, professor, a musician. I wear a lot of different hats, but I'm really excited about a conversation around mobility rituals. Because I feel like I use both of those words, but it's the first time I've seen those words together. I think Equiticity is doing something really interesting with that. The organization that I work with is called the Laboratory of Ritual Arts and Pedagogy, right? And Ritual Arts and Pedagogy, if you take that as an acronym, it's RAP, right? So it's the RAP Lab. And so part of what we do is within Colorado, mostly within Denver Public Schools, we are building learning environments where youth can engage in arts and engage in hip hop arts. Particularly, we have just recently built a studio, a state-of-the-art recording studio in a high school, traditionally Black high school here in Denver. And so the idea is getting youth engaged in art as a way of getting them engaged in their community and in culture, right? And so I think a part of that is realizing that hip hop itself is a force of healing, right? And I know that that's something that we'll be talking about today, ritual as a means of healing, of wellness, et cetera. And so those are things that I think a lot about in the work that I've done. I've done work, not just in hip hop, but around, rituals of grief in community with youth, but trying to find spaces for youth to both express themselves, express their emotions and engage in forms of youth voice.
Oh man. Oh, all right. Oboi.
Yes, sir. Hello, everyone. And thank you, Jonathan and Lonnie, for hosting us. And thank you to our ASL interpreters for being here to support. And thank you, Dr. Kalonji, for being here as well. And we have my colleague, Brandon, who's going to be supporting all of this here. Brandon Goodall, our Director of Community Mobility Rituals. I think he's about 3 days into the job. So thank you, Brandon. And just a quick note, thank you all who are attending, and we appreciate your patience as we work through some technical difficulties. We do have another panelist who we're still trying to get on the call. Hopefully he'll be able to join. He's amazing. His name is Jaime Ortiz. He started Ciclovía in Bogotá, Colombia, which is now an international phenomenon. So yeah, pleasure to be here. My name's Oboi, Olatunji Oboi Reed. I am the founding president and CEO of the Equiticity Racial Equity Movement. We are operationalizing racial equity by harnessing our collective power through research, advocacy, programs, community mobility rituals, and social enterprises to improve the lives of Black, Brown, and Indigenous people in our society. And I look forward to this conversation to talk about community mobility rituals with my brother, Dr. Kalonji. And as we'll share with you, this is the start of a 4-part series. Every Friday in May, we'll go into different topics related to community mobility rituals. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, so do we want to try to do the video again? I think I have maybe gotten it. We can try it. I'll give it a few seconds. And if you could tell me in the chat if you see anything, that would be great. And then if not, we'll try to share it with you all in the chat at a later time. So let's see. Do you see it? Yes. Okay, which I think that's progress from before, right?
The passcode?
Jonathan, can you mute yourself? All right, let's see. Do we hear it? No. Do we hear it?
No, nothing.
I'm happy
Okay.
to share it afterwards as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to. I'm ready to get into this conversation.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Yeah, we'll send that out to attendees after this is done. Does that work? Okay, I'm assume yes. Yeah, I can see the interpreter.
Yes, let's get into the conversation.
Thank you. All right. We've done the introduction of panelists. Lonnie, people don't tell the people who you are and what you do.
So my name is Lonnie Swain. My background is in radio and television. I was on air in Chicago for over 8 years and in multiple different markets across the country, and helping and supporting and amplifying the messaging of nonprofits has always been a passion of mine. So it's really an honor to be here with you all today to share the great work of not just Equiticity, but of our panelist, Dr. Kalonji, as well, and the great work that he's doing and the work that's being done in the community and creating these ritualized experiences for Black and Brown people. So let's start off with Oboi. If you could explain to us how mobility events have become rituals, that would be great.
Sure, happy to share. So we coined the term community mobility rituals to describe the work we do. There's ample research which shows the impact of rituals, not specifically mobility rituals, rituals on improving neighborhoods. And as we delved into rituals, we recognize that what we do is a form of rituals. However, they're mobility rituals. As an organization, we do 5 types of community mobility rituals: community bicycle rides, neighborhood walking tours, public transit excursions, group scooter rolls, and open streets festivals. And these mobility events become ritualized and normalized in neighborhoods because they have 7 elements in common. So I'm going to briefly describe each of those elements. The first element, and the most important element, is a rhythmic schedule, that repetition that's easily understood. For example, we do a ride in my neighborhood, North Lawndale, on the west side of Chicago, every Friday night. So there's a rhythmic schedule. We ride every Friday night. We do a park walk series that's every second Sunday of the month. So that, you see what I'm saying? That rhythmic schedule, which makes it easy to understand, also makes it easy for people to fit their lifestyle into the rhythm of the schedule. So all of us have some of these rituals in our lives. It could be a block party that happens on the first Saturday of June every year. It could be a high school reunion picnic that always happens on the, last Sunday of August. We all have these rituals, and you all will recognize that as the rituals are coming up, you're saying to yourselves, "Oh, I'm going to be there because it's the third Friday. This is where I go on third Fridays." So that rhythmic schedule is the most important element. And what makes it so important sort of lends itself to the second element, which is a priority on socialization. We want people to socialize as a part of our ritual. We also want to create socialization happening and communication happening between people who are inside the ritual and people who are watching the ritual from their porches or from the bus stop or as they're walking on the sidewalk. We want to create this two-way conversation. Another element is a focus on racialized healing. Our primary audience is always Black, brown, and indigenous people who live in the neighborhood where we're implementing the rituals. That's our audience. Black and brown people have the most severe inequities, from unemployment to violence to transportation to healthcare. We have the most severe inequities. So the act of a community mobility ritual is the act of racialized healing in our neighborhoods. The next one is, because it's a ritual and we want full participation from our neighborhoods, we want to reduce the barriers to participation. So our rituals are always free. We never charge people to participate in our rituals. For a ride, we ask our bike share system to bring bikes so that not having a bike is not a barrier to participation. For the distance and the pace, it's all reasonable so that even people of varying fitness levels have no reason not to participate in our ritual. And next is we look for opportunities to create shared customs as we're engaging in the ritual. A shared custom is a way to cement social bonds between people. I'll just give you a couple of examples. Here in North Lawndale, we do our Friday night ride series with our partner organization, Boxing Out Negativity, founded by Derek Brown. And what he would always do when he's greeting people during the ritual is he would put a right fist in the air to greet people. And this Friday night ride series, it rides throughout the season from May to October. It's been going on for years. So it's become part of how we communicate here in North Lawndale. And now when I'm walking around the neighborhood or I'm driving around the neighborhood, when I greet somebody, I'm greeting them with a right fist in the air, and I get a right fist back to me. And another one, another way that we communicate this shared custom is a call and response. So oftentimes, should I be leading the ride, I'll just yell out, "Yo!" And then everybody on the ride yells out, yo. Sometimes we go down some blocks on a hot summer day and people outside and they barbecuing and we come doing our call and response and they doing it right back with us. It's a powerful way to cement social bonds. And just two more, and I'll be brief here. We want to actively disrupt the status quo. Explicit in our community mobility rituals is an acknowledgement that there's something wrong with our society, namely structural racism and racial capitalism. These are systems in our society that harm Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. As much as we want our rituals to be enjoyable and for people to have a beautiful time, we also want to send a message to ourselves and others that there's something about the status quo in our society that is not nurturing, nourishing, healing for Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. So we want to disrupt the status quo. As one way of doing that, sometimes when we're riding and we hit a street, we fan out and we take the street and the cars have to wait on us now. We own the street now. It's a way of us actively disrupting the status quo to send a message to ourselves and others that there's something wrong that needs to be healed in our cities, in our communities. And the final one, the final element that helps our mobility events become community mobility rituals is the hyper-local community ownership of our space. Because our primary audience is always Black, Brown, and Indigenous people at the neighborhood level, this hyper-local focus is critically important. One, it helps to increase socialization because when people in the neighborhood are coming to the rituals on a regular basis, then people begin to get to know each other because now they're seeing each other on a regular basis. They're connecting to each other outside of the rituals, and it just creates this opportunity for increased socialization. And the other thing we want to do is we want to own our space. You know, oftentimes we don't engage in multiple forms of mobility because we don't feel safe. We may not feel safe riding bikes. We may not feel safe walking in our neighborhoods. We may not feel safe using public transit. So we sort of stake claim, we stake ownership in the space. We go to a park. We own the park now. We go make it safe for ourselves and everybody else. All right. And my good friend, Mr. Jaime Ortiz joined us at the right time. So that's just a little bit about how we think about community mobility rituals and the elements in common that help them become ritualized.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I would be remiss if I just went on to this next question without taking just a quick moment. Man, it's so good to see you, Jaime. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know we had some technical difficulties all over the place. If you would really quickly tell the people who you are and tell the people what you do.
Very much. Please excuse me. I had to go through the whole Zoom again process, but I am here. I'm very thankful for the invitation. I am Jaime Ortiz Mariño. I'm an architect from Bogotá, Colombia, and I'm here to talk about Ciclovía, that event that happens in Bogotá since 50 years ago.
Yeah, Jaime's being real, he's being real modest here with the talking about Ciclovía, but we'll get into that a little more. Dr. Kalonji, I have a question for you because I enter into the conversation of ritual from following a liturgical calendar and you know, really like food rituals, Taco Tuesday, Fish on Fridays, but you enter it into a thing that's dear to my heart, which is hip hop. Would you talk to us about how you find ritual within hip hop and how does that affect your understanding of community mobility's rituals as a whole?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that this frame of ritual is such an important one for us right now, and for youth, as you know, as we're addressing many of the things that Oboi talked about when it comes to thinking about racialized healing. Some of the I think the moment where I really understood a ritual was very important was I was working as a youth organizer in East Palo Alto, California. And one of the issues in the community was that youth were feeling that violence was happening in the street in a way that was that they didn't have ownership over their own community. They didn't feel safe. And not only that, they had lost friends and family members to gun violence and various different forms of violence. And so working with youth are imaginative, they're creative, and they're always developing new routines. And so one of the things that they decided that they wanted to do was to do an event called Bless the Block, right? And Bless the Block was a ritual, right? And it happened, like, again, it's going to have a lot of the elements that Oboi talked about. Repetition, right? So repetition, it happened every full moon. And so on the full moon, what the youth said is, we want to be present on the block at night when you know, a lot of stuff was apparently going down. They said, we want to reclaim the street as safe, as you know, as belonging to the community, as a space for healing. And so, you know, part of that was going out and, you know, bringing in things like hip hop. So everyone wore white hoodies, right? Everyone, you know, there was the idea that we should burn sage. So we had these huge torches of sage that, you know, when we came through. And another principle that Oboi talked about, disrupting the status quo, right? And it's, in a lot of ways, that's what that did. They weren't used to, in that community, seeing a gang of youth in a positive sense out on the block at night, right? And so people were smelling sage and hearing young people, you know, talking, and that disrupted, you know, what was normal in the space in a lot of ways. And, you know, it also, you know, when you come to thinking about ritual, it has this this sacred element, right? It has this element of, you know, there was a way in which young people kind of stepped up to talk about their grief, to talk about the fact that, I remember there was a young man that had lost a cousin, and we actually went to the site in which his cousin was shot, right? And so how do you, you know, realizing that, yeah, and that's also hyper local, right? So thinking about, like, you know, what these different sites and spaces within a community mean to the people that are there. And so I'll jump in and just say, you know, a couple other things that I think kind of came out of that project of Bless the Block, that there was this element of mobility. We were, you know, we weren't on bikes, but we were moving around the community. There was certain aspects where we were like moving in circles around space. We were, you know, some of the artists were, some of the youth were artists and wanted to share their poetry or their art in that space. And so thinking about how that became something that happened, you know, on every full moon, and became an embodiment of that idea of like a ritual. And so there's three other things that I think that I'm thinking about when it comes to ritual, and it has to do with roots, right? Like being rooted in community, I think, is such an important part. So that's one way of thinking about roots. But I think there's another type of roots. Sometimes people use routes, but the roots that we take through community and with folks around community becomes routine, right? And I think all of those forms of roots, routes, and routines are the aspects of ritual that I think are really important to the healing that we're talking about.
Wow, dopeness.
Thank you, Dr. Kalonji. That was awesome. Before we get to Jaime, just a reminder that we would love to hear your questions as well. There is a Q&A option at the bottom of the screen that you can enter your questions, and we will be going to your questions next. So get those ready. No question is too big, too small. Drop it in there. We want to hear from you. So Jaime, this one is for you. We would love to know what it is about Ciclovía that makes it what we call a community mobility ritual, and a bit of the history about it.
Okay, let me say to begin with that I'm talking from 4 degrees above the equator, 9,000 feet above sea level, underneath a vertical sun, and underneath this aerial river that comes from Africa, crosses the Atlantic, crosses the Amazonia, and hits the Indian mountains. Why do I say that? Because Ciclovía happened here, because we are in an environment that allows us to be permanently outside throughout the year. We have a very mild weather, and we only shift a little bit from a rainy season to a more sunny season. And that being said, that bicycling was something very logical in our environment. So when I came back from the United States, having had 2 educations, one formal at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, near the hub, and another one on the streets from 1966 until 70, where so many things were happening on the streets in the United States. Civil rights movement, women's lib movements, the challenging of Vietnam. So I did receive that education also, that led me, when I came back to Colombia, to have a perspective of how things could and should be done when circumstances were needed to be changed. And I was very lucky. I was very lucky to refound bicycles. I had left bicycles from childhood when, and in my adolescent period, girls didn't ride bicycles here. So I refound cycling in Bogotá, because I never saw a bicycle in Cleveland, let me tell you. But in Colombia, cycling is a big, big and very old tradition. So the debate on how cities should allow and receive formally cycling, because until then, in the first part of the century, of the 20th century, cycling was a somehow clandestine, underground event. Nobody legislated, nobody designed, nobody invested in cycling, and the cities were not designed taking into consideration cycling. It was all designed on the image of the American city. So I found the bicycle, and it became a symbol of the urban debate in Bogotá, and we designed a strategy that would help make visible cycling and to hit the citizenship, the administrations, the academy on the need of design and invest for it. And the strategy was started by using temporary spaces that were designed for something else, but closing it to the normal use and be used for walking and cycling was very fast accepted by the society. And it grew alone. It grew with no money. It grew with no religion. It grew with no social differences. Ciclovía was from the beginning a very neutral space that people appropriated for themselves. And they made it grow and grow. And if we can talk about 50 years, it's thanks to the people, to the Bogotanos, to the people of Bogotá that have accepted it. And that was very interesting when Olatunji Oboi called me this idea of ritual. Yes, it is a huge, one of the largest contemporary ritual in the world. We have almost, we are a city of 8 million people. And we have on Sundays, roughly, or nearly 2 million people out on the streets with no police in one of the most violent cities and environments in the continent. On Sundays, people change the channel. They move to a channel of friendship, of amability, of togetherness. There's no difference on Ciclovía on Sundays. The poor and the rich, the lefties and the righties, old and young, we all meet as equals on this space created for them, that we were so lucky and successful, making it so neutral that nobody feels anything different but main actor in that scene. So for us, it's part of our identity, is part of our, once a short story to illustrate. Once I was in Paris riding the metro, and behind me there was a family that was Colombian. And I started hearing what they were saying, and the kids were asking their fathers to take them to buy the clothing for Ciclovía. It's something that is already rooted, is a symbol of Bogotá, is obviously, it is a ritual of Bogotá.
Wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful. Should we jump into some of the audience questions now?
Yes, we should.
Awesome. All right, let's see here. I see Q&A. Got a question here from Terrence Johnson. And the question is, are there any safety concerns or issues to be thought about regarding rides and the movement for community mobility rituals? And I'll leave that to anyone who might want to respond to that.
I'll just be real brief. Yes, we're always concerned about safety. We're concerned about 3 types of violence with Equiticity: interpersonal violence, traffic violence, vehicular violence, and police violence. So here's a few things we do to create safe environments. One, we partner with community-based organizations in the neighborhoods where the ritual is taking place, because they know the community, they know the people, they know the police district, they know the folks, they know the streets. Okay, there's something going on in that street, so we're not gonna go down that street this week. It's kind of hot. We're gonna go over here. So work with community-based organizations in the neighborhood. And when we're moving around, that two-way conversation is critically important. Imagine coming through a community and you ignore the people who live there. When we come through, hey, how y'all doing? Happy Friday, peace, what's up, y'all? It's a two-way communication, so it's not a us, them. It's all together. We find that approach helps us stay safe. And I would love to hear from Dr. Kalonji and Jaime as well.
Well, if you want me to talk about safety in Bogotá, can you imagine 1.5 million people to up to 2 million people alone on the streets, riding bicycles, chatting? Safety is built in because everyone is out, including the thieves, I think. It's really amazing how this society accepted and became owners of the environment. There's solidarity all over the place in Bogotá on Sundays. And obviously, many things happen. Among orthopedists, there is a Ciclovía syndrome. Every Sunday, there are broken arms and things because people fall from bicycles. But this solidarity that is created when you feel that you own the space, that you own the street, that is nothing away from you, it's your street. It's amazing, and it's for us. We don't have too many ambulances or no police on the streets on Sundays, and in a very violent society. So this is a hope we have for the future, that something is there for us to analyze that has made us possible, something that looks impossible.
Dr. Kalonji, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I can quickly talk a little bit about safety in the context of the Bless the Block that I mentioned. I think safety was a concern for that project quite a bit because that we were thinking about violence in general, right? And in the community, what I felt like, and maybe this I think probably resonates with Jaime, what you just said, is that there was a respect for what these youth were doing, right? That these youth had taken this into their own hands and were being so brave in the space. I think there was a support from the rest of the community when they saw us out there, right? And so there was a certain way in which there was some intentionality on behalf of the youth, that this was a peaceful a space where everyone was taking care of each other. There were some concerns about, how it would be perceived by law enforcement. But we never actually had any serious run-ins in that way. And there just seemed to be a consistent effort of solidarity with the project. So.
Lonnie, a question. Do you have on hand the pictures of first Ciclovía in Bogotá?
I can be pulling those up for at the end of the webinar.
Because yes, it's because there is a picture there where this little child on a tricycle, her mother behind, two men on bicycles on a corner on the first Ciclovía is such a powerful image that couldn't grow wrong. I mean, it grew from a little child riding a tricycle in the middle of the road. So that's how he was born.
Awesome.
I will be getting those for the end of the webinar, so we'll have those. We have one more question from Eileen, and she asked, how can a county or city transit agency work with community groups to make rituals, routes, routines, or routes more easily realizable in equity communities? And whoever wants to jump in for that.
Sure, I could share some thoughts here. So you specifically, Eileen, you specifically mentioned transit agencies. We do have a partnership with our transit agency here. However, that's not the traditional agency that we work with on our community mobility rituals. We work with our DOT here. Not to say we couldn't work more with transit agencies. Generally, what we want our government agencies to do is to create opportunities to establish community ownership of the planning processes impacting our neighborhoods. And that requires a few things. It requires financial resources. I'm sure you know, Eileen, US DOT does allow government agencies to use federal funding to support community-based organizations. It's not always an easy process. However, those funds are allowed to be used in that way. So financial resources are critical. Power is critical. Oftentimes, agencies are coming into our neighborhoods and asking for feedback on a plan they've developed. We want to be at the table, envisioning how this is going to work, talking about the problem. We want to have power in that planning process. When those things are in place, it's a stronger partnership that happens between community-based organizations and our government agencies. And then what I would encourage you to do is to work with community-based organizations at the neighborhood level and ask them, what do they need? What do they need to execute community mobility rituals in their community? Just in case Dr. Kalonji or Jaime want to share, I'll create some space for that as well.
I can jump in. Jaime, did you want to go? Did you have a?
Go ahead.
Okay. No, I just was going to say, in addition to, government agencies, thinking also a lot about institutions like higher education. So, a lot of the resources for some of the projects that I've worked on have come from support research partnership work with universities, and that given that that's my current job at university, trying to navigate those types of partnerships in equitable ways, and that support community organizations leading these efforts, and not co-opted by these organizations, is a really important thing to sort of think through. And then also, how to involve, schools at K-12 schools as well. That's something that, really is important in the work that I do, is how to engage and make work youth driven in both the planning, design of these types of programs. And so any way that you can involve that, I think is is good for the sustenance of the ritual, and making that something that can be intergenerational.
In the case of Bogotá, the process was first the people, the community got organized, which was not a very complicated organization. And then we had the administration running behind us, and they were trying to chase us because we were faster. And politicians started realizing the importance of the event. So we had the politicians coming in, trying to, but it's always been from the people on. It runs, it ran for almost 15 years with one truck, 100 metal signs that a person would drop in the intersections and nothing else. And the people came in, and we developed the protocol that we have as citizens, a civic protocol. And then the institutions start running behind us, trying to catch up.
Oh, wow.
Thank
Okay.
you. We're coming to the last 5 minutes. I was able to pull up the photos that Jaime sent over. We're not going to attempt to do another video, so I'll instead show the photos, because I think that will be a safer share. And Jaime, if you could tell us what we're looking at here. That's the little baby on the tricycle that I think you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that's Main Street of Bogotá, Carrera Séptima, with one of the largest avenues, obviously designed for cars. And what else, as I was mentioning, that's how I was born, with the little kids on tricycles. And that was my partner riding his 10-speed. And it was a very simple thing. The signs were designed by some kids from the University of Los Andes. That's me on the left. That's the proof that I had hair and black. And it was just a very simple event, but it was born from the people, for the people, and by the people.
Awesome. We appreciate that.
We had several questions that we were not able to get to today. I hope that we'll have an opportunity to address some of these. I know a couple of people that is in the chat. I'll make sure you get an answer to your question. For those of you who are not connected directly to one of us, if your question is for a specific panelist, we'll make sure that the panelist gets it and maybe have an opportunity to respond to you directly. But in case they don't, because these people are busy, they have busy schedules and busy lives, I'm going to let them tell you how to get in contact with them. So we'll start with Jaime, go to Dr. Kalonji, and then to Oboi. Tell the people where to find you, how to follow you, how to engage with you.
Okay, I would like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to join us next year on the 50th anniversary of Ciclovía of Bogotá. We want to make it a global event. The idea behind the celebration is something similar to what happened in 1990 with the first Global Earth Day. That is not a pyramid or organization, but a net where everyone can raise their hands and says, what are you going to do in your corner, in your neighborhood, in your city, whatever. And there's going to be organized events and I will make all of you participants as soon as we are ready. You can contact us, contact me to begin with through I'm a Twitter. So I will give Jonathan and Lonnie and Oboi. By the way, thank you very much for the invitation. I'll give you my details on how to connect me.
Do you know your Twitter handle offhand? Do you know it?
My Twitter, yes, is @ Jaime Ortiz 2006.
All right.
Oh, all right. Yes. Well, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this conversation and really, you know, the frame of mobility rituals. Even just having that conversation you know, I've taken away a lot in terms of how my work fits into that and adds to that conversation. You know, in terms of like finding the work of the Rap Lab, feel free to follow us on all platforms. We're on Instagram under Ritual Arts Pedagogy, ritual.arts.pedagogy. And if you can also just Google my name, Dr. Kalonji. I'm on Twitter as Quasi Woke, QUASIWOKE. And then we also have a website for the Laboratory of Ritual Arts and Pedagogy, raplab.org. Thank you.
Awesome. Huge, massive thank you to our host and event planners, Lonnie and Jonathan. Special thank you to Dr. Kalonji and Jaime for being a part of our first webinar, second year running. So yeah, thank you all. Really appreciate it. Everyone is able to reach me, Equiticity on social media, Equiticity @Equiticity on all of the social channels. They call me Oboi, Twitter, Instagram, and then I'm on LinkedIn under my full name. I plan on being with you in Colombia for the 50th anniversary. Jaime, I would love to take a delegation from the US. So all we need is some dates, and we will start to do the work to make sure that we're there celebrating with you. And I would love for everyone here to join us and go celebrate with Jaime. Thank you all.
You're very welcome.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. And if you enjoyed today's webinar, don't forget we're doing this every Friday, all month long, same time, same place, 12 p.m. Central Standard. If you registered for this webinar, you should already be locked in for the links for the next couple of webinars. So we hope that you will not only join us, but tell a friend and a few more friends and share your experience. And we hope to see you again next Friday. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.